welcome back to another ChronoLara video. Today we're going to ChronoCram paper 3 Weimar Nazi Germany. Let's get straight into the video. Unit 1, the Weimar Republic. Origins of the Weimar Republic. 9th of November 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated and the Chancellor Max von Baden announces the abdication. 11th of November 1918, the armistice, which ends World War I, is signed by the politician Matthias Erzberger. An armistice is an agreement made by opposing sides in a war to stop fighting for a certain time, basically a truce. The new government was linked to surrender. Durchstoß, or stab in the back myth, came around. The creation of the Weimar Republic. In January 1919, Friedrich Ebert is elected as Germany's first president, and Germany also elected their new government. Germany used an electoral system called proportional representation, which just basically means where the number of seats a party gets reflects the proportion of votes they've received in an election, making a coalition government. SPD, the Social Democratic Party, win 40% of the vote, and the Centre Party win 20%. Weimar Constitution. It was drafted in Weimar, hence why it's called the Weimar Constitution. The Reichstag is the German parliament. Constitution was largely drafted by Hugo Press. I don't know if I'm saying that right. If you're German, please correct me. And he's a liberal Jew. Every 7 years is election for a new president, and I'm going to note that every 4 years it's the election for a new chancellor. There's 18 Landers, and a Lander is a local government. Article 48 was part of the constitution, and it just means that the president can pass emergency laws. Article 48 was not ideal because emergency really wasn't defined or clarified, so this article was susceptible to being abused. The National Assembly included 423 delegates. This is seen as the Weimar Coalition. The main parties are normally SPD, ZP, and DDP. Now, Treaty of Versailles, which was signed on 28th of June 1919, required Germany to follow some obligations post-World War I. One being that they had to accept full blame for World War I under Article 231, the War Guilt Clause. They had to pay £6.6 billion in reparations. The army was limited to 100,000 men. They weren't allowed tanks, submarines, and the air force is banned. They lost 30% of land, including Alsace-Lorraine and Polish corridor. All colonies were lost to the League of Nations, and this treaty angered the Germans, and it also weakened the Republic's popularity and legitimacy. In Hitler's Mein Kampf, which we're going to talk about later in this video, chapter 10 of it was devoted to the Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler called it the greatest injustice. Now, there was political challenges to the Weimar Republic, one being the Spartacus uprising in January 1919, led by Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht. This is a communist left-wing revolt in Berlin, and is crushed by Freikorps, which are right-wing ex-soldiers. Now, going on to the other side of the political spectrum, we've got the Kapp putsch. Kapp putsch is led by Wolfgang Kapp and 5,000 Freikorps. Freikorps this time are not defending the Weimar Republic, but they're fighting against it. This is the nationalist right-wing revolt, and a general strike by workers in Berlin ended this purge. Political challenges again. There's political assassinations. There's 376 political murders, and this highlights the unpopularity of the Weimar Republic. Hyperinflation in Germany 1923. January 1923, 60,000 French and Belgian troops occupied the Ruhr. The Ruhr is an industrial region where a lot of production for Germany happens. And this happens because Germany missed a December 1922 coal delivery. Coal delivery was also part of their reparations. 132 factories were seized. In November 1923, $1 was equivalent to 4.2 trillion marks. And if you wanted to get one loaf of bread in Germany in November 1923, you'd have to pay 200 billion marks. Middle class lost savings and pensions became worthless, but people with debt, such as businessmen, could pay them off easily, so some people did benefit from hyperinflation. But thank goodness there's some economic recovery because of Gustav Stresemann. So Gustav Stresemann is appointed as Chancellor of Germany in August 1923, and he ends passive resistance in the Ruhr and introduces a new currency called the Rentenmark on the 20th of November 1923. This was organized in the Rentenbank, which he also created. In 1924, Stresemann and an American bank called Dawes make the Dawes Plan, and the US agreed to send 800 million marks in loans, and reparations were temporarily reduced. In 1929, Owen, Young, and Stresemann agree on the Young Plan. This reduces reparations to 2 billion, and the payment is extended until 1988. Improving foreign relations, 1923 to 1929. In August 1923, Stresemann is also appointed as foreign minister, and he kept this role until the 3rd of October 1929, where he died in office. December 1925, the Locarno Pact was signed by Germany, France, Belgium, Britain, and Italy, and Germany accepts its 1919 western borders. In 1926, Germany is admitted into the League of Nations. This is a symbol of international acceptance. Looking at changes to Weimar society. So, women. In 1919, women over 20 are given the right to vote, and 90% of them voted in the first election. In the 1920s, more women worked in white-collar jobs, including civil service, shops, offices, etc. There's also new women which defied traditional ideas of women. They were smoking, wearing makeup, short skirts, shorter hair, breaking away from tradition. From 1925 to 1930, female employment rose to 35% of the workforce. Changes to Weimar culture. Now, freedom of speech and expression were guaranteed in the Weimar Constitution. The Bauhaus movement, founded in 1919 by Walter Gropius, featured modern and functional architecture moving away from tradition. German films like Metropolis, created in 1927 by Fritz Lang, explored modern themes. Cabaret, so Berlin became known for daring political performance art. And art and literature criticized war, militarism, and explored new liberal values, as seen in works of like Autodex. Changes to Weimar living standards. In April 1920, the government passed the Reich pension scheme to assist World War I widows. There was an estimated 400,000 war widows in Germany post-World War I. 1927, Unemployment Insurance Act was introduced to support job seekers, and 2 million homes were built in 1924 to 1939 to tackle housing shortages, and from 1925 to 1929, 64,000 new homes were built. And workers' real wages increased by 25%, education improved. So by 1928, there was 110,000 students in higher education compared to 1914, where the number was only 70,000. Moving on to Unit 2, Hitler's rise to power. The creation of the Nazi Party. January 1919, Anton Drexler founded the German Workers' Party, DAP, in Munich. September 1919, Hitler joins DAP. By January 1920, Hitler becomes the head of propaganda for the DAP. In February 1920, the party is renamed NSDAP, National Socialist German Workers' Party, and they've released a 25-point program. The 25-point program had points which outlined anti-Semitic points, anti-Versailles, and anti-democratic. In 1921, Hitler becomes the leader of the NSDAP and he gained full control. Also, in 1921, Hitler sets up the SA to protect meetings and attack opponents. The SA gave the party a sense of discipline and violence. The Munich putsch and its consequences. So, the 8th to the 9th of November 1923, Hitler and the Nazis attempt to overthrow the Weimar government in Munich, and this is supported by General Ludendorff. They took over Beer Hall and marched through Munich, and this was stopped by police, and 60 Nazis were killed. Hitler is arrested and put on trial. He's sentenced to 5 years, but he only really served 9 months at Landsberg prison. Whilst in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, and he published this in 1925. Mein Kampf expressed key Nazi ideas, so like Lebensraum, which is living space, anti-Semitism, and Führerprinzip, so leader principle. Nazi reorganization, 1923 to 1928. This is also known as the Nazi lineage. After the Munich putsch, Hitler shifted to a legal strategy to gain power via elections. The SS, which is the Schutzstaffel, is created in 1925. This is an elite, loyal bodyguard unit. In 1926, the first Hitler youth groups are set up to indoctrinate young boys. Joseph Goebbels perfects propaganda with posters, rallies, newspapers, etc. Germany is divided into 35 regions called Gau, and each single region had a Nazi party leader, being a Gauleiter, such as Goebbels and Strasser. Goebbels was actually promoted to the Gauleiter of Berlin. Big corporations such as Thyssen and Krupp also funded the Nazi party, and the Bamberg Conference in 1926 brought the party's policies in line with Hitler's beliefs in Mein Kampf. This allowed Hitler to reorganize the party. Nazi growth and impact of depression. October 1929, the Wall Street crash causes Great Depression and US recall their loans from Germany. Strassman has this one quote called "dancing on a volcano," and this is obviously seen here where all that moment of prosperity just falls down into the Great Depression. Now, unemployment in Weimar Germany rises to 6 million by early 1932, and Nazis offer simple answers, one being Arbeit und Brot, which is work and bread. July 1932, Nazis win 230 seats and become the largest party in the Reichstag. Hitler becomes Chancellor. So, November 1932, Nazis lose seats, 230 196 seats. However, they still are the largest party in the Reichstag. There's many changes in a short period of time in chancellors. So we have Brüning, who's also nicknamed Hunger Chancellor, von Papen, and von Schleicher. Von Papen persuaded Hindenburg to make Hitler chancellor and make himself vice chancellor. Von Papen really didn't like von Schleicher, and he would have preferred Hitler to be the chancellor. Hindenburg and von Papen underestimated Hitler, and they thought they could box him in. The 30th of January 1933, Hindenburg appointed Hitler as chancellor. Unit 3, Nazi dictatorship, establishing the Nazi dictatorship and securing its safety. 27th February 1933 is the Reichstag fire. This is blamed on the communist Marinus van der Lubbe. Day after, 28th February 1933 is the emergency decree, and this suspended civil rights as police could arrest without trial. 4,000 communists were arrested because of this. 23rd February 1933, the Enabling Act is passed, and Hitler now can make laws without the Reichstag. In June 1934 is the Night of the Long Knives. Now, Hitler goes on his purge and he eliminates many political opponents, including SA members and the leader of the SA, which is Ernst Röhm, and rivals like von Schleicher and Strasser as well, and von Kahr. Over 400 are killed. On the 2nd of August 1934, President Hindenburg dies, and Hitler creates his own formula, equation, whatever you want to call it. He adds the role of Chancellor and President and makes himself the Führer. Removing public opposition. January 1933, there's the 18 Länder parliaments, which are the local governments, are replaced by governors loyal to the Nazi Party. In May 1933, trade union officials were arrested and they were all replaced with the German Labour Front, DAF. July 1933, after shutting down the SPD, so Social Democratic Party, and the KPD, the Communist one, and shutting their offices and seizing their funds, all political parties except the Nazi Party were banned. In March 1933, Dachau, the first concentration camp, is also opened. Nazi police state. So the SS, which are the Schutzstaffel protection squad, are part of the Nazi police state, and their motto is "My honor is my loyalty." Heinrich Himmler is the leader of the SS, and in 1925 there are 200 SS members, but in 1939 there are 290,000 SS members. The Nazi police state also have the Gestapo, which are the secret police. This is led by Reinhard Heydrich from 1934. 80% of crimes are reported by denunciations from ordinary citizens. In 1937, there was 6,700 Gestapo members, but by 1939, there are 20,000 Gestapo members. Also, you got the SD, which is a security service. They are a section of the SS which are responsible for gathering intelligence. You also have the Nazi court. The German word for people's court is Volksgerichtshof. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. From 1934 to 1939, there was 534 death penalties. Roland Friesler is the president of the Nazi People's Court, and by 1936, it was obligated for judges to wear the swastika. Controlling and influencing attitudes. This is propaganda and censorship. In 1933, Goebbels was appointed as Minister for Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. Goebbels himself said the best propaganda is that which works invisibly, penetrating every cell of life. Volksempfänger 301, this is the date that Hitler became Chancellor, the 30th of January. The Volksempfänger is the people's receiver radio. It was cheap and sold at 76 Reichsmarks. By 1939, 70% of households owned one, and it could not pick up foreign stations like BBC, which is a key example of censorship. The People's Observer was the Nazi official newspaper, and there's a movie made by Leni Riefenstahl in 1938 called Olympia, and this was filmed at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. This really glorified Germany. Culture changes in Nazi Germany. In 1933, the Reich Chamber of Culture is created under Joseph Goebbels, and this controlled works by actors, artists, musicians, and writers. This banned jazz because it was linked to Jews and black people. It banned books by certain people, so Lenin, the Russian revolutionist who was in the Russian Revolution, and Marx, they were banned for communist ideologies. Obviously, Hitler hates communism, and Einstein because he's Jewish, and we know that Hitler is a very big anti-Semite. In May 1933, there's book burnings across Germany as well. Now, youth opposition. Edelweiss pirates are working class teens who mocked the Hitler Youth. They spread leaflets and they openly opposed Hitler. The swing youth were teens who listened to band, jazz music, and wore American clothes. Religious opposition. So Hitler had signed a Concordat, which was agreement that the church does not interfere with the Nazis and the Nazis don't interfere with the church. But Hitler broke this Concordat with the church. Martin Niemöller is a priest, and he formed a confessional church in 1934, and this opposed Nazi interference in religion. Pope Pius issued Mit brennende Sorge, which is with burning anxiety, in 1937, and this attacked Nazis and their ideology such as Nazi racism, etc., etc. Moving on to Unit 4, Life in Nazi Germany. Key policies for women. In 1933, the law for encouragement of marriage was passed, and this was loans of 100 Reichsmarks given to newly married couples, and per child they had, it would be reduced by 250 Reichsmarks. So if you had 4 kids or over, you would not have to pay back these loans. Women were expected to follow the 3 Ks, Kinder, Küche, and Kirche, which mean children, kitchen, and church. In 1935, the Lebensborn program was set up, and this program was made to pair SS members with genetically pure women to breed the most pure and Aryan children. In 1938, the Mother's Cross was introduced, and these were prizes for women for the amount of kids they had. So if you wanted a bronze, you'd have to have 4 to 5 children. If you had 6 to 7 children, you'd get silver, and you'd get gold if you had 8 or more. And for your 10th child, your child's godfather would be Hitler. Women and employment. 1933, professional jobs are banned. 1936, legal jobs are banned. And 1937, grammar schools and women aren't going together anymore. Nazi policies towards workers. DAF, which is the German Labour Front, replaced trade unions so workers could not strike. RAD, which is the Reich Labour Service, was compulsory manual work for men aged 18 to 25. There's also this strength through Joy program, so KDF. These are subsidized holidays, concerts, cars, such as the Volkswagen scheme. This made many people more motivated and improved employment. Beauty of labour. This aimed to improve workplace conditions such as lighting and cleanliness. Unemployment fell from 6.1 million in 1929 to 0.5 million in 1939. Youth and education. The curriculum was changed to focus on race studies such as eugenics, PE, German history, and Nazism. Textbooks were rewritten to include Nazi ideologies. Mein Kampf was studied in school. In 1936, the Hitler Youth became compulsory, and the League of German Maidens, BDM, was preparing girls for motherhood and homekeeping. Persecution of minorities. Let's look at Jews. In April 1933, there were boycott of Jewish shops. September 1935, the Nuremberg Laws. Nuremberg Laws caused Jews to lose their citizenship, and they were banned from marrying Germans. The 9th to 10th of November 1938, it was Crystal Night. 206 synagogues were burned and destroyed, and 30,000 Jews were sent to camps. Nazis aimed to create a racially pure Volksgemeinschaft, and Volksgemeinschaft means people community. They believed that Jews did not belong in the community. Other targets. You had the Roma and Gypsies, homosexuals, so by 1938, 8,000 homosexuals were imprisoned, Slavs, so Nazis had their eyes on Slavic countries like Russia, so they could acquire Lebensraum, living space for the German people. For the disabled, there was a T4 program in 1939 and the law for prevention of hereditary diseased offspring in 1939. This law meant that if you were disabled, you'd had to be sterilized so you could not have kids. Now, thank you so much for watching. That is the whole of Weimar and Nazi Germany summarized in brief. Good luck revising and hope it goes well for you. Bye bye.